Hey there and welcome back to PSD Tuts. I'm Gavin Steele, and in today's tutorial I'm going to take you through Alex's how to create a richly ornate typographic illustration. And I'll just show you the final result down here, and you can see we have this really lovely organic kind of type with the letters across the middle kind of I don't know, kind of some of them are spreading, some of them are larger than others, and we've got a big ampersand sign at the back and a really nice kind of wood grainy effect with some detail on that, and overall got a really nice image here. So I'm just going to take you through some of the files you're going to need. I'm pretty sure you can do all of this without having to buy anything. You've got the free font there that we're going to be using, and we've got free vector ornate pack from Go Media. Just hit up the link and download the free file, and do check out all of their other stuff. They've got some really great vector packs on there that you can play around with, and some great tutorials on their Go Media zine. So do check out all of that really cool stuff. Okay, let's start with our tutorial. So load up Photoshop, create a document, nice and large. This one I've gone for is 1000 by 700, but you could make it 6000 by 6000 and keep it on about 300 dpi, and that should be fine. We're going to set up our foreground color and a background color first. So click on your foreground color, and we're going to set that to 48403A. And we're just going to start to create our wood effect. Select your background color, set that to AC 9F92, and again let's fill that in. So grab the fill tool, little bucket over here, and we're going to fill the background with our foreground color. So you should get something like that. Then we're going to head up to filter. I'm just going to open that background layer just in case it gives us any issues. Filter, we're going to go to render, and let's hit fibers. Okay, and we get kind of furry, kind of cotton kind of effect. So we're going to set that to variance of say 12 and 34 for the strength. And then you can hit randomize a couple times till you get something that you think looks a little bit like the grain of wood that you're looking for. It won't look exactly the same as mine or in the tutorial, but once you're happy, I'm going to stick with that. That looks pretty good. I'm just going to quickly rotate it, and let's just grab that and bring it out. We get a fairly good wood effect there, nice and quick, nice and easy. And you could head over to all the sites that offer free textures or buy them over at the the marketplace, but that's a nice enough effect for what we need for this tutorial. So once we've done that, we're going to head over to layer, and we're going to do a new adjustment layer, and we're going to hit that with a gradient map. Okay, click on OK, and we're going to choose our colors here. So we're going to go from 2E, 1B, 1B to black. So I'm just going to finish off with our black. And let's change the first color to 2E, 1B, 1B. Click on OK. And then we're going to set this to overlay and reduce it down to about 50%. And it just adds a little bit of blend, a little bit of color in there. Then we're going to add a new blank layer, and we're going to fill that layer with the color 633A1C. And we're going to set that to multiply. And we get a really nice dark effect. Now if you don't want your wood to be that dark, then we can just lower the opacity just a bit. Somewhere around 65, even down. Just have a little play around so you get a kind of color that you're happy with. And then we're going to use a gradient tool, and we're going to go from white to transparent. So I'm going to stick a new layer on there. And we can just go from white to transparent. I need to set my foreground color first. There we go. And we're going to have it on linear, and we're going to go from top to bottom like so, and then reduce the opacity down to about 10%, just so we have a little highlight at the top and a darker area at the bottom. In fact, I might just reverse that. Oh no, actually that's pretty good. Let's leave it on 10%. I was going to lighten up the bottom area and darken the top, but I think that looks pretty good for now. So next thing we need to do is we need to merge all of that down. So highlight it all, hit Command E, and that's our background done for now. Next thing we're going to work on is our typography. So you need to create a new Photoshop document for this, and we're going to go for somewhere in the region of, in fact let's just leave it on the same, but let's change it to CMYK and click on OK. Let's bring this back into screen. Okay, so we're going to type each layer and each letter onto a new layer. Okay, so don't worry about the color for now, but you know, choose a color which you're going to be able to like have a different variation in, so you can see which letter's behind which letter and which letter overlaps and so on. So in the tutorial it goes for a couple of greens, and make sure you have the right font selected, nice and big. And we're going to start with the T. That might be a little bit too big. And then just position that somewhere along the middle. Going to add the Y. And again, play around with your positioning, play around with, you know, where you want each item. And let's just grab that and change its color so it's a little bit lighter. And we're going to move that below our T. Okay, we're going to grab the P, make that a lot smaller, a little bit darker. And we're just going to move that down. And obviously position these however you want. I'm trying to get as close to the tutorial as possible. It might not turn out to be exactly right, but I'll fix that up as we go along. Let's increase the O a bit. Maybe just off the P. And then we've got G. Nice big G. About there, T on the keyboard for the text tool, change the green, and T again, and I'm just going to try and go through these a little quicker. Get the right A. And P. And finally, the Y. Now with the Y, make it nice and big. And then I'm just going to right click on that to control transform, and then flip it horizontally and just move it back down into place like so. And I'm just going to shift everything over to the left just so we can all see that right in the middle. Brilliant. Okay, so that's, it's that simple. Grab all your letters, stick them on different layers, and then you're just going to apply a little layer style to each of the layers. So we're going to start with the T over here, and I'm just going to zoom in so we can clearly see that, and V, auto select, and grab the T. So our layer styles for these are going to be the following. We're going to do a drop shadow, and we're going to set that up so it's on multiply. Black is fine. We're going to reduce that down to 60%, an angle of 127. That was probably already on that. 9, 0, and 62 for the size, and everything else there is fine. Let's give it an outer glow. So make sure that's set to normal, not screen. And then we're going to come down to 100 for that. 0. And then the color that we're going to use is 476454. Click on OK. We're going to make sure it's on softer, and then we're going to increase this, bump this right up to 50, and 13, and the rest is fine. Then we're going to add a slight excuse me, bevel and emboss. We're going to use a pillow emboss, set to smooth, set on 100 going up, and 7 pixels in size with 4 of the soften. And then the angle that we're going to use is 127. We're going to use the global light, set to 30, and screen is fine, but we're just going to change the color to F09629. 75% is a little bit high. Bring that down to 44. Multiply again. We're going to change the color to 45293C, and the opacity for that can be 75%. Again, that's fine. And finally, we're going to add a stroke. 7 pixels outside, normal, set to 100, and let's change the color to 466454. Click on OK and click on OK, and that's the effect that we get. Now, you might want to play around with some of these settings for whatever letters that you're doing. Obviously, I did that from my notes, so I'm just going to pull this to the side now, and I'm just going to reduce some of the glow and that kind of stuff. So if I bring back the spread, just going to bring it in just a touch. Same with the stroke. Okay, and drop shadow. Bring my size down just a bit. And click on OK. And then you can go through each of your letters by copying. Right click on your layer, go down to copy layer style, right click on your next layer and paste your layer style, and that will paste it on. Same with the H now. Let's come back down to a letter that we can see. Right click, paste the layer style, and so on. It's going to apply that to all of those letters. So I'm going to go away and do that really quickly, sort out some of the arrangement of these letters, and then we can get on with the rest of the tutorial. Okay, so I've gone away and I've added the ampersand, and I've played around with some of those settings a little bit just for the size of the screencast. Some of those sizes were a little bit off, so I'm just going to zoom in just so we can have a closer look. And if I grab the letter T, let's have a look. So I didn't change any of the things that I added, but if you have a look at some of the settings we've got on here, we've got our opacity set to 60%, angle 120, distance 3, size I've reduced it down to 18, outer glow, normal, kept the same green, and the spread is 50 and the size down to 4. Bevel and emboss, again, pillow emboss, all the same, size 2, soften 1, and all the angles are fine, and those percentages are fine again. And the stroke, I reduced that down to 2, outside normal, and added the color. So just playing around, and I also added the ampersand in the background from the tutorial as well. So play around with those, and hopefully you'll get your lettering there or thereabouts, especially if you set your canvas up to be 1000 by 700. You shouldn't have any issues now with that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add some wood effect to the lettering and a little bit of light or gloss over the top. We're going to start with our letter T. So we're going to click on our letter T. We're going to create a blank layer above the letter T, and we're going to make this layer clipping. So hold down Alt on the keyboard and click in between them, and what we're going to do is we're going to bring in the wooden texture. In fact, before I do that, let's grab all of these layers and let's stick them onto our main canvas now. Okay, and I can get this one out of the way. So we're going to start with our letter T, create that new layer above it, Alt click in between the layers so that it clips the layer like so. And then we're going to place our wooden texture layer inside that T. So I'm going to start by duplicating it, and I'm going to bring that up, and you can see it automatically clips. If it doesn't do that, hold down Alt and click inside, and let's have a look at our letter T. Okay, looks pretty good. So once you've got the wooden texture in there, on that blank layer that we created earlier, we're going to fill that with white. But the first thing we need to do is hold down Command, select our letter T, head up to Selection, Modify, and Contract. And we're going to contract it by about 2 pixels. That looks pretty good to me. And then we're going to grab the white color, and we're going to fill that layer with white. And then we're going to head up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and about 2 pixels, that should be good, 2 or 3, and click on OK. And then we're going to reduce the layer down to 40%. Let's undo that. I've pasted that layer onto the wrong one. Let's fill that again. Filter, Gaussian Blur, there we go, and reduce that down to 40%. There we go. So before I just did the white on the wooden layer rather than the new layer. So you should get something that looks like that. Grab your eraser tool and just bring down the opacity just a little bit. And then we're going to just do some sweeping movement just to get rid of the letter T, Command deselect, and then we've got a pretty good light effect. And again, we can increase or decrease that depending on how much of a mark you want to make, but 40% should be enough. And we're going to do exactly the same with all the other letters. But before we do that, we need to just grab a couple more images. So we need to grab our screw images. Okay, and you can get them from step 12 on the tutorial. And again, these are free. And I'm just going to grab this size because we're going to be, shrinking them right down. So I'm just going to drag that straight onto my desktop. And I'm going to load it up. And then just quickly, with the pen tool, I'm just going to quickly run around the edge. So make sure you've got your pen set to paths, and then just quickly try and get a rough shape. Sorry if it's not perfect because the screw's actually not quite perfect, it's a little bit worn. I'm just alt clicking back on the final point just so I can start in a new direction. Okay, right click inside, make it a selection, click on OK, and we're just going to copy that from this layer here, Command copy, and then Command V. You can turn this one off, and you can see we've got our screw layer. V on the keyboard, I'm just going to drag that straight into our document, and I can get rid of my screw. Can I bring it over my T, Command T, holding Alt and Shift right down. Okay, let's undo that. And then we can just move that into position wherever you want it to be. Zoom back out to 100%. Again, we can just bring that down just a little bit more. And hit enter. Okay, so once you're on that layer, we're going to double click on the layer styles for that layer. And we're going to give, in fact, Command Shift U just to desaturate that layer. Back to the layer styles. We're going to give it a drop shadow. Set that up so it's on multiply and black. 75% is good. We're not going to use global light. We're going to set that to 47 degrees. And distance is 505 is fine. Bevel and emboss. And again, I'm just going to move this over to the side just so that we can see the effect that we're having. That looks okay. Bevel and emboss we're going to set so that it's a pillow. And smooth is fine. 100% up. Let's try increasing that to about 10 or 7. Let's come down to our angle and let's have that on 41. And the altitude set to 32. That's pretty good. Let's head over to the screen. Excuse me, white's good, 75's good. Black's pretty good, that's all fine. Let's reduce that down to 54. And okay, that looks pretty good. We might reduce the size a little bit more to 5. Just play around so you get something that you like the look of. No, I think I'm happy with 7. Again, you might not like the look of that, but I think that works pretty well. Kind of ties it in just a little bit. Yep, that looks pretty good. So we're going to go through all of those steps again for each letter. So again, V on your keyboard, have auto select, click on the Y, and again, I'm just going to duplicate this layer, but I'm going to bring it down so it's above my Y. Alt click to make it a clipping mask, a clipping layer, and then grab a new layer. Let's clip that as well, you don't have to. Command click on your actual letter itself, stay on that layer. We're going to fill that with white, reduce that down to 40%. Go to filter, use the same Gaussian blur, grab your eraser tool, and again, play around with your lines and bring your opacity down to match, like so. Now I missed that one step there, so I'm just going to grab that layer. I missed out my select, modify, and contract. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to selection, inverse it, and just delete the rest for that layer. And you can see that that's brought that in. and it's kind of made up for that little mistake. We've got little 2 pixels going around the edge of our glow or shine there. And again, you can quickly grab your screw, hold down Alt, grab that, stick it up top, down the bottom if you want it, position it. Make a few smaller ones. And then zoom out. So we're going to go through that for each of our letters, and the ampersand, and position all of the screws in place, and then we'll come back and we'll play around with some of our organic shapes. Alright then, so I've just gone through each of those letters and applied exactly the same effect to each of them, thinking about where, you know, the bits of glow are going to go. For the smaller screws, I've actually included, you can just about see there, the other screw head that's included in the tutorial, and not the Phillips head, just the flat head screw, just for a bit of variance for the smaller ones, but I think it looks pretty good. Next thing we're going to do is I'm just going to quickly open up Illustrator, and we've got this freebie from Go Media. Gives you a little sample of, you know, all of the cool vectors, brushes, animations, the whole works they've got now. So we're going to start with this one here. And the first thing that we're going to have to do with this is we're going to change the color. So what I'm going to do is, oh, don't want to move it. We're going to start with this this little flower, ornate flower. A on the keyboard. We're going to select a bit of white, and then we need to change that color. So we're going to change that to 486554, and click on OK, and then just going to click away, and we get this really nice dark color. So make sure with that selected, you Command C to copy it, load up Photoshop, and I'm going to come right down to the bottom, down here, Command V, Smart Object, and click on OK. And there we have it. So now it's all about positioning. It's about where we're going to stick these little ornate pieces, and again, it's completely down to you, you know, where you want to put them. But we're going to start with one just coming out here. Hit enter, and let's zoom in and have a look at 100%, and that looks pretty good. So once you've brought it in, you've pasted it in as a smart object, we need to add just a little bit to our ornaments. So open up your layer styles, and in the blending options we're going to play around with outer glow, and we're going to set that to normal. And again, I'm just going to move this just so we can see the effect that it has on the piece. 100 should be fine. Yep, zero noise. We're going to change the color to be 486554. Technique softer, that's fine. Let's change the spread to 39 by 3. We're going to add a stroke, and we're going to set our stroke to be 1. Outside's fine, normal's fine, 100's fine, and let's change that color. Let's change that to 476454. Click on OK, and click on OK, and let's have a look. Okay, it looks pretty good. Create a new layer over the top, and we're going to fill that layer. Make sure it's a clipping layer. Alt again, so that it clips. Grab your brush tool, just a nice big soft brush. Change the color to 74 CD D8, and then we should just be able to just paint over the side because it's a clipping mask. just to bring out some of these edges. So we're going to start harsh on these edges here, because I want them to be nice and strong. Let's get a nice big brush going on. Come down the sides. Yep, that looks pretty good. Then I'm going to reduce the opacity down to about 40. Just get these inner areas. And then down even more to 26. And then right down at the bottom, so we get a nice blend coming from the bottom all the way up for the top. And really that's all we're going to do with each of our little flourishes there. So you need to make sure that you copy, if you're going to copy them and move them around, this new clipping layer and this layer. Duplicate that, Command T, flip it round, let's bring that down. Let's flip that horizontally. Move that into position. And again, grab your brush, increase the opacity, make sure you're on the right layer, and just brighten up these tips. And then reduce it right down. Like so. And we're just going to keep on adding them until we get a really nice finish. And again, make it as organic as you want. I think it already looks really good. It's a great image, great tutorial, and there are lots of stages that you could stop and say, actually, I'm pretty much happy with that. But we're going to play around with a bit of color now. So we're going to add a new adjustment layer at the top, new adjustment layer, and gradient map. And we're going to set one up. I think I've got one already down the bottom, going from a purple 60174D to a red or orange in the middle, ED1F24, to a yellow on the end, FCEE20. Click on OK, click on OK, and click on OK. Let's set that to reduce it right down to about 30%. And then we're going to go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Selective Color, select the blacks, and reduce the yellow down to -20, not the yellow, the black of course, down to -20, and click on OK. Right, this layer here, I'm just going to reduce the opacity down just a bit more. Let's have a look at 100%. Kind of mutes it just a little bit. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So we're going to add a touch of color. So let's duplicate one of our floral bits. Let's move over to the side here. And we're going to duplicate this one over here, and we're just going to add a hint of color. So V on the keyboard, auto select so we get the right floral bit. Yep. And just going to grab that, duplicate it, transform it, shrink it down about 50%. Have that coming in like so. And then on our color layer, I'm going to erase out all of that colour. Make sure we get all of it. Then I'm going to change my brush tool, change my colour to F7, nice bright colour, DB 58, nice yellow. And then with the brush tool again, playing around with our opacity, we're going to start low. We'll just bring in a hint of it on here. Increase up. Let's come back into our layer style, change the color overlay. Let's change that to the same F7 DB 58. Okay, I'm just going to grab the eraser tool. I'm just going to bring off some of that. We only want there's a little touch of colour coming back in, back on the brush, like so. And that's a nice little way of adding just a little touch of colour to the image. And we can add little highlights of colour to all the letters as well. So again, I'm going to go away and add that. I'm doing exactly the same process, but to each of the little ornaments as I position them. Okay, and so let's just zoom in. You can see I've just added that hint of orange over the colours of some of the letters, the corners of some of the letters, and I've only really used it just on certain little flourishes here or there, the same way that Alex has used it in the tutorial. Now, one thing I've got down in my notes here is a big exclamation mark right next to image mode CMYK. And that's what I wasn't using before. Unfortunately, my first file was RGB, so some of my colours that I was using, excuse me, didn't quite match up. It is important to make sure that you've got it in CMYK mode, and you can head out to image mode and set that there, or at the very, it's better to start with that at the beginning. So if you've gone all this way, I do apologise if you've been in RGB, but I can't remember whether I mentioned at the start to set it to CMYK. I thought I did. So anyway, so that's all our flourishes. It's time to finish off and work on the background layer. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our free pattern right here in Illustrator, and just going to move up, and you can see that it also comes with a similar kind of flourish, but in a background image that looks like that. So we're going to select that, and we're going to do pretty much the same way. We're going to fill in the white, so just going to zoom in. So grab an area of white, change the color to black, click on OK, and then we're going to copy that, Command C, come back to Photoshop, come right down to the bottom, Command V, and we're going to stick that in somewhere right in the middle. We need to make sure that it's an exact fit, so just going to zoom out just a little bit, or just scale that right to my corners. I think that's going to look too stretched. Yeah. So let's Command Z that. Okay, I know what I'm doing wrong here. Let's paste that into a new document. So just going to paste that straight in, and then we're going to go up to edit. That's fine, grab. And we should be able to go to edit. And then once you've done this free transform, define a brush, or define a pattern, sorry. And we're going to call that flowers. And then we can come back to our original and create a new layer above our background layer, and with the bucket tool we're going to use a pattern, and we're going to select that pattern we just created and just fill it like so. And once you've filled it, we're going to set it to right down like so, and then we're going to go to, actually let's come to blending options, set the fill opacity down to 0. Let's set bevel and emboss, we're going to set that to the pillow emboss, have that set to smooth 100 up, size 1 pixel, 0 is fine, 127 30 degrees, screen white 75, that's fine. Let's bring that down, flip that, 57, and 20 for our opacity down the bottom. Click on OK, bring that up, and then finally create a new layer above that, make it a clipping mask, and then on that new layer, big brush, we're going to paint in some spots. So we're going to keep the opacity fairly low, we're just going to start to bring that in to increase our opacity. Let's zoom in and see how that's looking. Okay, for some reason that's not coming up, so grab my brush tool again. Maybe that needs to be, is it 10%? That's better. And then zoom out. I've actually covered up that layer. So come back in there, play around with your settings. No drop shadow. It can be a little bit visually. Let's increase that to about 10%. And we're going to use the eraser just to bring out some of that area. And then zoom in, whoop, and again, play around with that background, play around with everything until you get it looking how you want it to look. But at 100%, it looks pretty nice. We've got just a hint of that texture coming through from the background. Really hope you enjoyed that. It's a great tutorial by Alex. Really nice effect. I know I've seen some comments already about how much people are loving it. So thanks very much to Alex for that on how to create a richly ornate typographic illustration. I've been Gavin Steele. Hope you enjoyed that and hope to see what you do with some of those creations. Thanks very much.